It's a bird, it's a plane, it's a police surveillance drone. If you thought you saw something hovering over you in the sky at a Labor Day party this past weekend, your eyes do not deceive you. The New York City Police Department announced last week they had planned to launch police surveillance drones in response to complaints about large gatherings, including private events over Labor Day weekend. In response to priority and non-priority calls, NBC News reports, Kaz Daughtry, the assistant NYPD commissioner, said in a statement, if a caller states there's a large crowd, a large party in a backyard, we're going to be utilizing our assets to go up and go check on the party.
The plan immediately drew backlash from the New York Civil Liberties Union, with the organization's privacy and technology strategist Daniel Schwartz saying, it's a troubling announcement, and it flies in the face of the Post Act. Deploying drones in this way is a sci-fi-inspired scenario. Schwartz also said this in an interview with NBC.
What we don't want to see is this bleeding out to sort of routine patrols by drones, routine hovering over our homes and over our communities.
The plan was announced during a security briefing focused on Jovert, a yearly Caribbean festival celebrating the end of slavery, which brings thousands of people, including police, to the streets of Brooklyn. New York City Mayor Eric Adams, a former police captain in New York, has said he wants to see police further embrace the endless potential, according to NBC. We'll have to cut that part out. So, Robbie, what this looks like to me is we have to fight for the right to party. It concerns me that Eric Adams wants the NYPD to use drones. He compared, their use of drones to rivaling Israel, which is a very concerning thing for Mayor Adams to say. But I don't know, it doesn't sit right with me, and I'm sure it doesn't sit right with a lot of people that they're just using drones to spy on parties to see if there's any bad stuff going on in your backyard. Doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, I predict it would sit right with absolutely no one. This is going to be one of those things that literally no one thinks is a good idea. You thought of Israel. I thought of China, their use of drones, broadcasting the message, control your soul's desire for freedom at the height of the pandemic. Straight up dystopian, sci-fi, authoritarian, Orwellian, all the usual descriptors seem to fit. To surveil Labor Day parties, people are allowed to have Labor Day parties. They're allowed to have raucous parties with there's no limit on the number of people you can have over to your backyard party, as long as it's okay with, if you're in an apartment, there might be some terms in your lease, but it's none of the government's business, and that's the way it has to be. Now, yes, if there's violence at parties, then the police get to do something about it, but routinely surveilling, just as a matter of policy, anyone having a party without any accusation of violent or criminal behavior is so beyond the pale, we shouldn't actually even have to point it out.
I'm unsure how this would play out legally. Imagine you have something caught on drone footage, someone doing something criminal, the cops show up and arrest that person. Is that an unreasonable search and seizure? Is that a violation of their constitutional rights? To me, it feels like, yeah, and this is a Supreme Court case waiting to happen, especially if, as the Civil Liberties Union official Schwartz has been pointing out, this is that kind of a concern where they could be using drones on a regular basis. Eric Adams being inspired by Israel is absolutely terrifying. I think this is just sort of an entryway into them using drones on a regular basis. People see folks in the street partying. They see things get out of hand on occasion. I get it. People want to party and have a good time. And sometimes you have these street takeovers. This is a problem in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I live. But at the end of the day, if they're not hurting anyone and they're just diverting traffic, people are going to want to party. They're going to want to let loose. They're going to want to have fun. That is not a crime. And so treating it as if it's a crime is something that makes me feel bad about how our police resources are used. Think about all of the children that are missing. Think of all of the rape kits that go untested. It also just feels like a bad use of police resources to be cracking down on people partying on a day off at a celebration.
Yeah, you mentioned whether it's actionable, whether the police can, use footage they get from drones. My understanding is this part of the law is still kind of being adjudicated in court, so we don't know exactly. Obviously, there are a lot of court decisions and there can be contrary court decisions, right? If not everything makes its way to the Supreme Court, about whether the police can they search your vehicle when they stop you? They need reasonable suspicion, probable cause. Would they come to your home for some other reason and they can see in the window, they can see something? Can they do a search? Does that lend itself toward probable cause? There are rules governing us, governing journalists. Like if you can see into someone's backyard and you take a photo of it, could you run that photo without getting sued? There's all these laws that govern that kind of stuff. So this one is still a gray area because it's not been, I think, properly adjudicated yet. But unfortunately, courts are often way too deferential to violations of privacy, frankly. So it would not surprise me if the police see something and they say that's probable cause, and then the arrest would hold up. Would not at all surprise me.
Yeah, I think deploying the drones on Labor Day weekend when people are planning on just like hanging out and grilling and barbecuing was just the perfect time for the NYPD to test this out and announce this. Because I think everyone feels some type of way about having their day off. A festival that happens every single year. The Caribbean Festival is a really big deal in Brooklyn. For this to be the time that they're deploying drones when people are like, no, we're just trying to have a good time. I mean, for their PR, this couldn't have been a worse time. But it really is, for the general public, the perfect time for us to realize, wait, is this even necessary? Do we want this in a democratic society, the police to be using drones? Of course, there's going to be a small fraction of people who are very tough on crime, who want the police to catch crime wherever it might be happening. And people who don't want there to be loud parties in their neighborhood that I'm sure are a fan of this. But I think if the majority of people don't want the police to be using drones, it doesn't matter if the mayor or the police force wants to use them. They shouldn't be allowed to use them. And I think that's the flux point we're going to be in, where the police are saying, well, we can't possibly police a crowd that's this big. Okay, well, don't. What's going to happen if you do not? There are a lot of crimes that go unnoticed on a day-to-day basis. Is a noise complaint worth violating everyone's privacy in a direction they don't want? I don't think so. And to have Mayor Adams I want to go back to this point. Comparing the use of drones to Israel is insane. The militarization of policing, I think, has reached a point where even folks who have been very traditionally supportive of police are now beginning to question that. I think when you ask most people, when you're in a situation where there's some trouble, do you call the police? And if not, why not? Why do you think that is? I think we're at a point where most people don't even feel safe calling the police.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, I do want the police to stop more violent crime, which is out of control in some cities, including my own here in Washington, D.C. We're going to have the highest year for murders in a long while. We're already well past 200 murders in the city. These crimes are not being investigated or arrested. People are not being stopped. I would like to see more. And they say there's a police shortage here. And in fact, America is experiencing a police officer shortage, according to the Associated Press. Over the past 2 years, at least 12 small towns have dissolved their police departments. And between 1972 and 2017, at least 521 U.S. towns and cities with populations of 1,000 to 200,000 disbanded their police forces. That's according to a peer-reviewed 2022 paper by a Rice University professor of economics. And as crime overtakes Austin, Texas, the city's police department is also shrinking. Austin Police Association presidents had this to say on Fox News about the changes he's seen in the department since 2020.
Our city decided to go through what they called reimagining police oversight. And then, we got back under contract, and then the summer of 2020 happened with a huge defunding movement, the riots post-George Floyd. I have over 20 officers indicted for doing their jobs during those riots. And, we just continue to have a city council that doesn't show its police officers that it cares about them.
Well, Thomas, they were trying to reimagine the police department. Nobody imagined that crime would go through the roof. We've got some graphics. Auto theft up 77%. Why bother owning a car? Murder is up 30%. Aggravated assault is up 18%. You describe the conditions for police officers working there as miserable. Why?
Well, I mean, we just have a backward slide. You know, we're a growing city, a city that should be up around 2,000 officers and growing right now. And, you know, I've got about 1,475 officers in our police department. And, you know, we're moving in the wrong direction.
Look, I'm not automatically deferential to police by any stretch of the imagination. I think there are some police who need different training or, you know, have violated the civil liberties of citizens. I think we do need police services of some kind, like a society that doesn't have any policing is, I mean, it's anachronistic. It's not even a society, really. So I'm also reluctant to spend more public money on government employees or resources in general, but it does seem like some places do have an actual police shortage. Is that actually making people, you know, you talk about people not wanting to call the police, not wanting to have interactions with police, but do people in these communities actually feel safer having no police departments at all? I'm not sure that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, it really gives the vibe that if a small town of 1,000, 2,000 people disbands their police department, that then there are no police present at all. That's not the case. The responsibility shifts to the county police. And the study from Rice University actually found that disbanding police departments at the town level actually has no effect on crime levels whatsoever. So the county police simply take over. It's a shift of resources and responsibility. It's not a major change. And so when I think about, you know, the need for police, right, and police presences, there are a lot of metrics that contribute to crime that police are not the answer to. Increasing police poverty, for example, if we increase economic opportunity in a given area, if we increase wages and benefits and reduce rents, there are all sorts of things that correlate with crime being reduced that are, in the long run, a smaller economic investment up front than allowing crime to continue, than saying, all right, we're going to invest a lot in our prisons and in our police response. I don't think it's a viable response in the short or long term for us to invest in retribution and punishment over preventing crime. If you really care about crime and you look into the data, you'll find that actually recidivism is not something that is resolved by putting people in prison. What is resolved when someone commits crime is the kind of approach of rehabilitation, making sure that people have job opportunities, increasing their education levels. There are all sorts of things that correlate with making it so that if someone commits a crime, they're unlikely to commit one again. And increasing police and prison time are just not two of those metrics that contribute to the outcome that most people want, which is less crime and safer neighborhoods. And so we're just investing resources in entirely the wrong place.
Yeah, I don't know about increasing sentences necessarily, but they're just not arrested. I mean, people get, in D.C., for instance, people have, they're not bringing any cases because of our court system has looked at these suspiciously and doesn't really let the prosecutors bring these kinds of cases. So we're not bringing cases of people who have illegal weapons, illegal guns anymore. So as a result, there are more illegal guns out in the street. And again, most violent crime is perpetrated by people who have a weapon that they are not authorized to carry. I support the Second Amendment. It's not law-abiding people who have weapons committing crime. It's people who have weapons that they're not authorized to have because they're already a felon, or it's not registered, they didn't go through the proper protocols, and those arrests are never brought anymore. So as a consequence, there's more weapons and there's more violence. And it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't seem crazy to me to think that's a bad system, right? That some more resources should be put toward arresting and prosecuting people who are who are in the problem group for violent crime.
I think it's a question as to whether or not more police presence is the solution, and perhaps a shift of policing resources. I think a lot of people are not happy with the amount of traffic stops done by police officers. I think many people would be happy if there were less traffic stops, especially considering that traffic stops for speeding when fought in court can be easily won if you can simply afford a lawyer. If you say, yeah, the cops radar gun, we have no proof that it was properly calibrated, judges will throw the case out. And so is that a good use of not only our judicial judicial system and everyone who works in its time? Is it a good use of the police officers' time? I think rather than saying, we have a shortage of officers and we need some more police officers, we could say, how can we shift and reallocate the resources that are already there? Can we have a more effective job done even with less police officers? And I think that's not the solution, because so many people in public office right now are just obsessed with the penal state and the approach of punishment instead of preventing crime at the onset and just having safer communities. The response cannot be to crack down on people with not only drones, but just regular police stops in traffic and on the street. I think we've got to move away from that and kind of reimagine really how policing is done. Just because, you don't get it right in Austin the first time you try to reimagine policing doesn't mean you stop there and say, well, let's go back to spending a ton of resources and having a huge police presence. I just don't think we should give up the first time we try to reimagine how policing should go.
All right, well, we will continue to discuss this, and we'll have more Rising in just a minute.